So have you guys seen The Bear?
No.
That's like
the kid
cook
from
show.
Shameless.
Yeah, I have seen a couple
I've
episodes
seen
of that.
season 1. I really liked it.
of The Bear.
Yeah.
I saw a couple I like it, but it's not a show I want to watch at night because it's so stressful. Like it's well told. I'm not saying this is a put down, but it's just a bunch of people yelling at each other in a high stress environment. So I feel like it's something I want to watch on a Saturday morning before I go do something. So
it's perfect to watch before bed, and I think you'd really love it. There's a new movie, although it's kind of a documentary on Netflix, and Rob Lowe is the host of it, but it's all about dogs. And it's dogs that they're training to be actual service dogs, like not lying to get them to go for free on airplanes, but like actual service dogs. And so you're basically just watching the cutest little puppies for an hour and a half. I enjoyed every second of it.
that sounds great. That's on Netflix.
Perfect.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it was great before bed. Although Abby was so into it. Abby the dog, staring at the TV the whole time, and for an hour and a half straight was just kind of softly growling at every dog for an hour and a half. It must have been exhausting for her. But yeah, very pleasant before bed.
I wonder if they'll have like those like puppies they bring in for cuddling at the DNC. That would seem like a DNC thing.
Yeah, they didn't have it at the RNC.
Well, that would be very anti-RNC.
When I was
at RNC, they'll have spiked clubs and you'll juggle them if you are pure enough.
Yeah, we got My Pillows. That was the softest thing at the RNC.
When I worked at the News Corp building back in New York, when I was at Fox Business, I knew like everybody that you could know. Like I knew the homeless guys outside by name. I'd give them Christmas cards. I knew the desk staff people. And so the desk staff people at the ground floor knew that I loved dogs. And so I got to know the bomb squad guy that would come in with his dog. And so like once a week I'd get a phone call. It's like, Mr. Heaton, your appointment's here. And I'm like, oh, my appointment. And then I just go downstairs, play with the bomb dog for like 15 minutes, like leave the whole building rife for explosions for that 15-minute period.
That's amazing.
There are dozens of us, right? 100% I would use a robot dentist. I had similar childhood trauma to Justin. Thank you.
Poor soul.
Thank you. Yes, more writes. Justin is right about medical culture. I almost died because arrogant doctors were busy being arrogant doctors and missed an illness. Thank goodness they aren't all like that or I'd be dead today. Also, give me robot dentists every day of the week.
I want more details. How'd you almost die? Tell me everything.
Rise, robot, sit on a throne of flesh and student debt rights. My primary doctor referred me to a cardiologist who has to be the gold medal of the worst bedside manner ever. I'm asked about a family history and I tell him about my paternal grandfather who died of a heart attack in the 50s. My dad takes medication for cholesterol. He then asked about siblings, to which I stated, I think my brother has heart issues. Quote, I mean, he just ran the NYC marathon in about 3 hours, to which this jackass says, well, that doesn't mean anything. I know marathoners who die of heart attacks all the time. Dickheads. And then finally, I rode in a Waymo once. The trip there was great, but then there was the return journey. On the way back, it started out as a normal ride, which I had grown completely accustomed to by now, until we hit the intersection at University Drive and Mill Avenue. At this point, the car needed to make a left in the busy intersection, and suddenly the light turns yellow. Okay, I think the car will make the rational decision to stop and wait. Nope. Does not. The Waymo instead makes the classic maneuver to book it to the dead center of the intersection, and when the light turns red, completely stop. This is when it realizes it needs to move or die, and so it moves. But wait, the lane we need to enter is completely full. So I'm stuck in the busy intersection, and the lady directly in front of me starts to drive forward and slams on the brake as soon as she looks up from her phone to see a startled me and has the audacity to yell at me in the passenger seat. Lady, I didn't drive to the middle of the intersection. The car clearly says Waymo and has the big spinny thing. I'm just wondering if maybe I should convert to Catholicism or something at the last second as an insurance policy. Then the car jolts forward as it hears this lady's insults and then slam right in the front of the bumper of the other car. She's still stuck. I'm stuck. And dare I say, a little bit scared. Then the car in front of me finally, as if as an act of God for my repentance of sin, moves the car in front forward and I make it to the safety of the other street. Anyway, haven't ridden in a Waymo since, just thought I should share.
They freak me out. And they're everywhere. So since we talked last week and you, Andrew, had said that you hadn't seen them, I've started counting how many I see every day. And yesterday was 6.
Get me off the wait list, Waymo.
You know what actually freaks me out
I'm defending you against this slander.
I didn't even leave the house yesterday and I saw 6.
Good.
So
More.
you being on the wait list means that they
Wait,
smell
were you
trouble.
just like sitting at the window looking out, like staring into the abyss for 7 hours?
Sitting at the dock of the
So I had-
bay, watching the Waymos drive away.
I sat on my balcony and had breakfast. I was out there for maybe an hour. Oh, I did some work out there too. So I was maybe on my balcony for max 2 hours. And then just as I'm walking by the window here and there, I just like see them. So they're fucking everywhere and they're multiplying every week.
What I'm actually more scared by is the aforementioned scooters that injured Justin the other day. I've ridden
That
those.
was because a human got in my way.
I've ridden those a couple of times. They're fun. They're a great way of alleviating traffic, but I don't like being in any space where if I trip one time I can die.
Yeah.
Like that's if I go to the Grand Canyon, my rule is I will never go close enough where if I fall, I die. Like if I fall and I break a leg, maybe I'll walk on that ledge, right? But with those scooters, I'm a clumsy guy, and I could see myself going into a curb. I could see myself there's so many things going wrong. I'm not wearing a helmet. I'm not going to ride them.
We have a nurse in our family, and this is in the Bay Area. And for what was it, Justin? Maybe 3 months when the scooters took over San Francisco. I mean, we're just talking everywhere all the time. If you're walking down the sidewalk, like there's dozens of people that are going to pass you in downtown San Francisco. It was a lot, and they ended up cracking down on it. But during those 3 months, she was saying that the head injuries, just the number of injuries in general, were just skyrocketing in their hospital. They didn't even know what to do with the amount of volume that they were getting. They're really dangerous.
For the record, I have hurt. I believe I broke a finger. And now I almost am sure that I have some kind of hairline fracture in my leg. Both of them have come from scooters. But one of them, I was really inappropriately drunk. And the second time was because an idiot human and not a beautiful, pure, amazing Waymo got in my way. Okay. I'm still not off the wait list. I wanted to check.
Eventually, Justin.
Just because I would take it to go
eventually,
to
you will be able to hire a Waymo dentist and get your teeth cleaned while you're on your way to something else.
Let's fucking go, dude. It's about time we reimagine all this shit.
Psychotic.
We were promised hover cars. Where are our hover cars?
I know, the Jetsons was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
How dare they?
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was a fucking cartoon. We were promised bears that stole picnic baskets.
That's real.
Where are we now?
Have you been to Yellowstone? They have bear signs everywhere. They will steal your picnic basket and your child.
Yeah, but will they be a ripoff of a vaudeville comedian that I can't remember? That's so funny. When you first realize that the entire slate of Hanna-Barbera characters that you became familiar with as a kid are all just one by one fucking ripoffs of popular stand-up comedians at the time.
Yeah, because there's Yogi Berra. There's also James Cagney. Wasn't he one of them, I want to say? Yeah,
like Jabberjaws was one of them. But so they eventually wound up in the 80s and 90s giving stand-up comedians cartoons because they're like, well, fuck it. It worked for Hanna-Barbera. We'll just pay... Howie Mandel and
Bill Cosby had Lil Bill.
Of course. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. And yeah, anyway.
My cousin's kid loved Little Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Loved him. So they lived in a part of the country that just didn't have a ton of black people. And so when she was little and she saw black people, she would give them hugs, thinking they were all Little Bill.
Yeah.
Nice.
So cute.
Lovely. Didn't they release Cosby? Isn't he out now?
Yes. His conviction was overturned.
He's a serial fucking rapist.
They went a little too far than the law would allow when it turns out for the conviction. Yeah.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
So wait, would your niece hug Kamala Harris or not?
No, I think it was
Half
like a
hug.
black guy thing because it was like she loved specifically Little Bill.
So did Kamala Harris.
So she would have run up and hugged a serial rapist had she gotten the opportunity enthusiastically.
In which case we're talking about Bill Cosby and not Kamala Harris, just to clarify
that we know of.
That we know of.
She still won't answer questions.
It's true.
An Ohio Supreme Court ruled that customers cannot expect quote unquote boneless chicken wings to be entirely free of bones, rejecting a lawsuit by Michael Berkheimer, who suffered a severe medical issue after swallowing a bone in his boneless wing. Berkheimer sued the restaurant Wings on Brookwood and its supplier, claiming negligence for not warning that boneless wings could contain bones. In a 4-3 decision, siding with the lower courts, judges stated that the quote-unquote boneless wings describes a cooking style, not an assurance of no bones. Justice Joseph T. Dieters argued that it's common knowledge that chickens have bones, likening them to chicken fingers. The dissenting justices, however, criticized the reasoning, arguing that the term boneless should imply the absence of bones, and the case should have gone to jury. You old son of a judge, Andrew Heaton. Is this a travesty of justice or no?
This one's so I want to read this. I read snippets of this case. I found a little bit of it, and it is saucy. It is like
no pun intended. I'm sure.
I never intend puns. I like it when jurists get like snippy or funny. Like Elena Kagan's funny. Whatever you think about her jurisprudence, she's a witty lady. And in this one, like the dissent was so pissed off that like he or she, I don't know the gender of the judge, but the judge writes like, he quotes the first judge that wrote the majority, then goes, Jabberwocky. Like used Jabberwocky. And then is like, at least the majority was aware that lady fingers aren't actually made out of ladies. Like he's just pissed off about it. And what's amazing about it is so much of this case, based on what I've read so far, really is just hyper educated people arguing about whether a taco is a sandwich or not. Like it's that kind of thing. Like, so I think I'm with the dissent on this and saying I think I would have allowed for this to go to jury trial, that there was a reasonable expectation that there's not bones in it. But when you start getting into it, it gets really complicated really quick. So the argument being made by the plaintiff was that he ordered boneless chicken wings. There was a fraction of bone in it. It got stuck in his throat and he nearly died. He had like 2 medically induced comas. It was horrible situation for this guy. Couldn't eat for 2 days, got infected, went to the hospital, nearly died. Awful situation.
Maybe he should chew his food.
Which would be the position of the majority. So he wants to sue both the restaurant and the poultry provider for the restaurant.
Yeah.
Because he ordered boneless chicken and he got a bone chicken, right? It
was a shard of bone.
A shard of bone. Right?
Okay.
It wasn't that he got a chicken wing. It's that he got a shard of bone.
Yeah.
So the dissent is saying it's a fucking boneless chicken. Like it's a reasonable expectation that it would not have a bone in it. And then the majority goes, well, hold on a minute. All right, hold on though. Like at this exact same restaurant, if he ordered buffalo chicken, like if he ordered buffalo wings, like could he sue the guy if it wasn't actually made out of buffalo? No, there's a stylistic element there.
Yeah, it's Buffalo the city,
right?
Not Buffalo.
Oh, is
the
that
animal.
what that's about? Yes. I always just thought it was like clever marketing.
No, the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York, is credited for creating the buffalo wing.
We're presumably
so buffalo sauce is really what they created.
We're presumably hamburgers, which are not burgers made of ham, but rather are likely from the Duke of Hamburg
Germany.
Or whatever. So there's the name thing. But then you go, okay, listen, it's not so much the name fixation. It's the reasonable assurance that there would be no bone in it. That's the issue. It says boneless, right? Okay, so let's keep playing with this, right? You order a cherry pie and it turns out that one of the cherries wasn't properly pitted and there's a pit in your pie that you end up swallowing. Like, could that be a reasonable situation to interpret that a pie would have a cherry pit in it if it's a cherry pie?
Not if they've guaranteed me a pitless pie. If they called it a pitless pie, then I would expect that they have done something to ensure that there's no pits. Like they could call instead like chicken nuggets. That's why it's shaped like a nugget and it's chicken. But when you say boneless,
so
the tort law here gets interesting. And I don't know tort law in general. I certainly don't know Ohio tort law, but there have been cases that get into this where the way courts tend to handle it, as I understand it, is they will make a differentiation in terms of negligence between foreign particles and innate particles. So if I order a fish and there's a fork in it and I injure myself, that was negligence. There's no reason to assume that there would ever be a fork inside of my fish.
I had a staple in my Chinese food.
That would be a perfect example. If I order a fish and there's a fish bone, reasonable to assume that there could theoretically be a fish bone in it. And so there's this question now of with boneless chicken, it is deboned, but there are bones in chickens.
In the processing, there might be a shard.
Could there theoretically be, and like at what level do you go, well, that's an understandable oversight that's going to happen 1 out of a million times versus that's gross negligence? I don't actually know the answer to this, but I think I would not knowing all the case law, I think I would default with the dissent. And because the majority basically goes, look, a reasonable person would know that there could be a bone in there. And I was like, well, I consider myself fairly reasonable, and I've never once thought about that when eating boneless chicken.
Here's where I think, and I don't know where the jurisprudence is on it, but it's not in the term boneless that I think that you can hide the majority's opinion. It's in the term chicken wing, because a boneless chicken wing is inherently an oxymoron, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and the item that you get is not a deboned chicken wing. It's not a drum. It's not a wing, right? We understand to be like a bar food version of this. A listener to Great Night, when we were doing the pandemic, we were doing 5-day-a-week shit because we had nothing else to do, and we were slowly going crazy during the lockdown. And for whatever reason, Brian and I got on this thing about this exact topic of whether or not boneless chicken wings should be called boneless chicken wings. And Brian said, hey, some enterprising person should go to their local city council and they should resolve that this should not be a statement, that boneless chicken wings are not a thing. You should call them something else. And indeed, a listener to the show went to
I read about that. That was your guy?
Lincoln, Nebraska's city council.
Today I read about that guy.
Yes.
I am impressed, Justin.
And did a whole monologue that was hilarious. That was way funnier than anything that we said. His name is Anders. He is a hilarious dude, but you can watch the clip. In fact, Will, if you can find it, play it right here.
Jane, and then you, okay?
I promise I won't take up too much of your time here. My name is Ander Christensen. I live at 1212 Twin Ridge Road. Lincoln has the opportunity to be a social leader in this country. We have been casually ignoring a problem that has gotten so out of control that our children are throwing around names and words without even understanding their true meaning and treating things as though they're normal. I go into nice family restaurants and I see people throwing this name around and pretending as though everything is just fine. I'm talking about boneless chicken wings. I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Sure.
come on. I propose that we as a city remove the name boneless wings from our menus and from our hearts. These are our reasons why. Number one, nothing about boneless chicken wings actually come from the wing of a chicken. We would be disgusted if a butcher was mislabeling their cuts of meats, but then we go around and pretending as though the breast of the chicken is its wing. Number two, boneless chicken wings are just chicken tenders, which are already boneless. I don't go to order boneless tacos. I don't go and order boneless club sandwiches. I don't ask for boneless auto repair. It's just what's expected. And then number three, we need to raise our children better. Our children are raised being afraid of having bones attached to their meat. That's where meat comes from. It grows on bones. We need to teach them that the wing of a chicken is from a chicken, and it's delicious. I propose that we rename boneless wings in the city of Lincoln. We can call them buffalo-style chicken tenders. We can call them wet tenders. We can call them saucy nugs or trash. We can take these steps and show the country that where we stand, and that we understand that we've been living a lie for far too long. And we know it because we feel it in our bones.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, hold it down, please.
I would like to just comment here. For the record, that's my son.
As listeners heard, it is just drop down funny. And he says that boneless chicken wings should be referred to as saucy nugs or trash. Like, he has a whole thing just shitting on the concept of boneless chicken wings. So I would say, yes, if it was just called boneless chicken, then you would have a reasonable expectation.
But if it's boneless chicken wing, you know there's a bone in it.
Then at least, look, to me, you're already in an oxymoronic situation. Are you believing the boneless part, or are you believing the wing part?
Yes, you're believing the boneless part. I feel like that's essential when
But
because you
it's
order
tenders.
wings or
you should call them chicken tenders, but they call them boneless chicken wings because they are prepared like chicken wings. So they are dressed in buffalo sauce usually. And so that's where I think I do agree with the majority, is that you separate the idea of chicken tenders, because chicken tenders are normally served undressed and you dip them in whatever sauce. Boneless chicken wings are prepared.
Oh, so the boneless, you're actually referring to a style there, as opposed to just calling it tenders.
They are dressed in buffalo sauce, drenched in buffalo sauce, and served to you.
To call them drenched nuggets.
This is Andrew's entire point. This is his entire point, is that this would eventually be a problem. And it turned out it was a goddamn problem in Ohio.
Because
he's
I
a
never
prophet
knew that
has now been totally vindicated.
I eat so many, like I used to go out of my way to go to Buffalo Wild Wings on, I think it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday or Thursday, but it was boneless night because I wanted the boneless, like the bones not being in it and them being cheap. Like that was the reason. It wasn't because it was drenched in sauce or whatever bullshit. I have no reason to doubt you, but like that was not why I was ordering the boneless ones. I didn't want to deal with the fucking bones. Like that was key. So to hear that, like, oh, your boneless wings might have bones in it and you can't do anything about it, is such horseshit. Like it's absurd. Like if that's the actual reason for naming it, it's preposterous.
Wait, so theoretically, if it was just called chicken tenders and it had a little bit of bone in it, would it have been okay?
It would make more sense than Gary. Because when I hear boneless, I don't know what you've done in the back of that kitchen, but I assume you've ground the meat, you've strained it. I don't know what the fuck you did, but you got the bones out of it.
You got a package from Cisco, which is what every bar on
Cisco
Earth
got
does.
the bones out of it.
Yes.
That's what I'm assuming.
And that is, I think, the big, I didn't know. I thought that there was an actual bone in it. Like if it was a shard of bone, look, sometimes there's rat shit in the sausage. Like this is a mass production.
This is the other thing, is like, where's the threshold for that? So like,
I think this dude just didn't chew. Look, I feel bad.
He's being
for him.
savage.
Yeah. I feel bad for him that he had this problem medically. Should there be some compensation between him and Cisco? I would say specifically, probably yes. I don't think there's a lot of culpability on behalf of the bar.
Yeah.
They're literally throwing
that's
the same
how I
shit
feel. I think
Cisco
has the money, and
we don't know if it's Cisco. Satire.
Yes,
analysis.
I should say I don't know who it is,
but whatever supplier.
I do know they got it from a supplier.
Whoever made that nugget, that's the person that should be paying this man's medical bills. That seems fair to me.
Sure.
Because whoever was supposed to guarantee,
be fine with that.
unless if the distributor is just calling it a chicken nugget and then the bar decides to call it boneless, then that's on the bar. So whoever, like,
I think you have more of a reasonable expectation to not expect bones in a tender than you do a boneless chicken wing. But I think like, they're the exact same. The only difference is that one of them includes the description of an item that has a bone in it.
I think if you're guaranteeing, like by calling it boneless, you should have a reasonable expectation for no bones.
I agree. That's ultimately where I go. Is I think that like the threshold gets higher with the description. So if you're saying I am ordering a catfish fillet, I don't think there will be a bone in it. But if you put the word boneless in it, my expectation's even higher that there's not going to be a bone in it. So I think that it changes the scrutiny threshold on this.
But imagine, to me, the equivalent would be boneless bone-in fish.
Yeah.
Because that's what a boneless chicken wing is.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a good example.
It is an oxymoronic title.
But if I went, so like Portugal, I love salmon. I eat salmon all the time. But in Portugal, they just cut a piece of the fish and fucking give it to you. So you're just like constantly pulling out the bones. It was fucking miserable. And I just stopped eating fish when I was there. But if they had advertised to me that it was deboned or boneless, yes, I would expect that someone had taken out every bone so I could just eat my meal.
Yes, and if that was that, but you are... I don't know.
Well, hold on, Jen. You're one of your 5 different hometowns is Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So swinging here for me is a fish sucker. Me being from the gentle plains, I think like clams are just rock snot. I'm not going to fucking eat them. But for people that are on the coasts that eat clams, like there's actually case law about this, where like you're getting clams or oysters or whatever, but there's a reasonable anticipation that there could be a shard of shell in it.
Yeah.
And so if you're eating an oyster, even though you're not ordering it on the shell or half shell or whatever, you're just ordering the rock snot in and of itself, there's an expectation there could be bits of shell in it. Yeah.
I guess, unless you're calling it shell-less oysters, which I've never seen.
Okay. All right.
So, because I do think that there are ways, if that's what you want to advertise, there are ways to ensure that there's nothing in there. So the fact that that wasn't done, like if you don't want to have that liability, just name it something else.
I mean,
this
look,
is so easy.
This is, I think, wherever the supplier, I don't believe that the supplier was like, we'll put a little shard of bone in
No,
there
of
and
course not.
We'll show them. So this is a
It
mistake.
got through the grinder.
This is a mistake on the people who sourced the chicken's fault, right? Although I'm more sympathetic to the idea if they came in as tenders and then you just called them, because the other thing is that essentially boneless chicken wings are meatier version of popcorn chicken. They're the exact same product. It is just chunks of chicken that are deep fried. The only difference is that historically with boneless buffalo wings, you are tossing them in buffalo sauce. So they are served in the same way that bone-in buffalo wings are.
There's also, just as a side note, there's like an entire ongoing war within the agricultural industry on weaponizing terminology to hurt competitors.
Yes.
So like the milk industry in every state, or I think every state, will come in and like every year try to get the state legislature to ban the word oat milk. And be like, you have to call it oat squeeze.
It's not milk.
See? But what a lot of courts have said is like,
Now
look,
we know
like,
who's bought off by big agriculture.
the term,
I just like accuracy.
but like milk of magnesium is something that's been around for like 200 years. Like there's lots of different things that are called milk that aren't out of a cow. And at some point there comes this threshold where a term is no longer literal because enough of the population knows it to reasonably infer that, like buffalo chicken, like the majority of the majority of the country. Same thing. Buffalo chicken is not made out of buffalo, but like people now know that.
Yeah.
And there's all the, like, for a while there were these like weird things where there were like wars over butter and margarine. And like at one point Congress required all margarine to be green because the
Is that why I can't believe it's not butter used the like porn trick where it's like they have to say this is not butter to get the word butter in there in the way that porn videos would be like
almost certainly
definitely not Seinfeld, and it's like the Seinfeld porn parody.
Almost certainly. Yeah. There's a whole there's just ongoing, and then like there's huge regulatory things where for a really long, I don't even know if this was like malicious or not, but like one of the things that Cass Sunstein did when he was the head of OIRA is he found that like milk was classified as like an oil or something, according to the EPA. Like it had been, and like, but it had this thing where like if milk got spilled on the highway, it would be like, it would qualify as toxic waste because it was an oil. So he like went in and was like, all right, well, why don't we redefine this as like just a liquid or whatever? But there's all these things that go into it.
I just don't think that boneless has crossed that threshold. I think boneless means no bones.
What if if I'm allergic to chicken and I order buffalo wings and I get an allergic reaction from that and I go to the hospital, can I sue? Because it's literally fucking buffalo.
Well, and also it's like this is a thing that's going to happen. If you are cutting up chunks of chicken, sometimes there might be a bone shard.
Yeah.
That's a reason. Like that is not unreasonable.
So call it something else.
No, but again, it's like this is
English muffins.
a plant
Can we not call
accident.
that?
This is a plant accident.
Do we have to call English muffins English style muffins from now on?
Yeah, they made an Angolan.
English muffins, you're not getting them from England.
This shit ain't from Manchester.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. Like it's not like not having a bone in your chicken is a matter of like I know what I'm putting in my mouth.
It was a shard.
Yes, I am aware that it's a shard. If that is possible, if you're not doing your due diligence as the maker of this chicken nugget to make sure there's no bones in there, call it something else.
You're probably never going to have 100% accuracy with that kind of thing.
Well, then you're going to have to budget in paying for this dude's medical bills because it was false advertising.
I'm okay with that bit, but I'm okay with candy bars being called candy bars without saying candy bars / 1% rat shit or whatever. Like you're not going to have 100% accuracy with them, right?
But that's not going to cut a hole in your throat. And
Stop
make you have
saying
to go to the
buffalo
hospital.
chicken, boneless buffalo chicken wings. Just stop it.
That just
it's
seems to be the solution.
Yes. Call them saucy nugs. Like just let them be.
Tendies.
Yeah. Tenders assumes that it's a longer, like it's like a part of like a breast, like a chicken breast,
Finger.
right? Yeah.
chicken fingers. We would change the name of that?
I feel like tendies and fingies are kind of the same.
Because
Well, they're
chicken,
kind of
chicken
the
fingers
same.
kind of look like fingers.
Nuggets-
That's presumably why they're called
nuggets
chicken fingers. They're not
are-
really fingers.
Nuggets
no
are
one thinks
closer
they're
to the
fingers.
form factor. They're chicken chunks.
But
Deep fried chicken chunks.
if your chicken finger was in fact a finger, you could not sue.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Because
So
So chicken fingers can have both.
this is why I'm fascinated by this, because
it can also have full ass fingers.
there are all of these situations where you can be like, this makes sense, but then how do we apply this? Like, again, the buffalo chicken example. Like, if
This is a really good topic.
Yeah.
I was expecting this to be a shitty topic and for
I'm-
us to just go off on something else.
My
but
plan
like,
is-
this is a really deep rabbit hole. We are into the maze on this one.
if I can get them, I'm gonna
Just endorse deep frying fingers.
Just saying, if it happened, at least it's truth in
Do
advertising.
you think that's going to be brought around at Fogo in a couple hours?
When the sausages come around, possibly.
Deep fried
Is
fingers.
it a sausage?
I know.
trying to think of other
Maybe
examples
Eaton's
of
cock gun.
Hulk gun. I'm trying to think of other things that like, milk of magnesium, oat milk, soy milk.
Costco does that. They don't have
Not
milk
milk.
on it. It's like oat drink or something.
Soy power, something like that. You got to
yeah.
come up with something better than like,
It's-
you don't want it to sound like it's in a sci-fi film.
And I think it's because Costco has the deep relationships with the dairy industry, but they also keep all of the non-biological products like outside of the fridges.
What do you mean by non-biological?
So all the oat milk, soy milk, blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah. It's like in the,
I think it's also because it's shelf stable,
Normal-
so they don't need to chill it.
which means it's not milk.
You also, but another dimension on this with the name stuff, you also get into like international treaties and things. Where like,
yeah.
Oh,
if-
I'm sure.
Like if, like here in Texas, I know distillers, and the distillers will take whiskey from Scotland. They will bring it over. They will age it in barrels in Texas, and they are like forbidden by law to call it Scotch. And they're like,
Yeah.
but it's Scotch that we aged in Texas. And Scotland's like, we will fucking go to
Kill
war.
you. Yeah.
Like we will absolutely do. Like Scotland's really anything with Scotch in
Kentucky's
it.
like that with bourbon.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
They get really, really, because that's like a whole industry.
right.
They are protecting their own industry to say that like, no, you can only have bourbon in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I don't know if Subway's remedied this, but at one point the EU wasn't going to allow Subway to call their bread because it had so many ingredients in it that just couldn't be classified as bread.
The EU can get like the EU.
They
is-
also wanted to ban the fucking Trump, Elon Musk spaces thing.
Right,
They
yeah.
got a letter,
They
a regulation letter.
warned
from
them
the EU.
preemptively that if it had misinformation, we're going to ban it.
Which it obviously will.
Yeah, no, the
Duh.
EU, like props to the EU for having freedom of movement and a big free trade network. Those are impressive accomplishments. But there are these giant fucking loopholes in it. Like one of the things the EU's got is a rule where we're a free trade network. We're a free trade network. Nobody can do any tariffs unless it's related to your defense industry. That's understandable. You can now do tariffs. So like, for example, in France, the sponge industry has been like the government just went, it's a vital national security issue, sponges. And they just went, well, that's now like, they'll do that kind of shit and just label it under national security and then have it. So yeah, the EU is all kinds of things like that.
I'm jealous of the EU's food laws though, because if you just look at the packaging on so much of our food, we do have an enormous amount of chemicals in there. And I know that when I eat stuff in the EU compared to the same stuff here at home, like I feel better over there. They just don't allow as many chemicals and just like bullshit foods in our foods. So I do
Better
feel more
vibes.
protected when I'm over there.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't speak to it. I don't know what the EU law is regarding food.
Yeah, it's just if you just look at the same products here versus there, there's real ingredients in their food, and then we have the chemical versions. It's kind of wild if you compare them. Next time I go to Europe, I'll just bring some shit with me and just like show you the comparisons. When I go, like Doritos are different.
Huh.
Stuff's just different.
Mm.
So
Are they banning particular chemicals?
Yeah.
Like yeah,
what?
let me know. I'd be curious as to what they're banning.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Basically, words that have too many consonants. Just look in the back of any food package. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's just words that you're just like, that's not wheat. That's not butter. Like, I don't know what that is. They've also banned some chemicals that we have in our chemical-based sunscreens. So I've been switching to mineral because like all things like we don't do very many studies on our sunscreens, especially the chemical kinds here in the United States. And that was really disturbing to me. I mean, you guys know, I think most listeners know this by now, but I have I've had skin cancer now 4 times. And so I'm just being more careful and paying more attention about what I put on my skin. And so I was looking for some studies because I really like this one particular chemical sunscreen. Like if I'm gonna use it, the Hawaiian tropic kind, like it kind of gives the skin a sparkle and it goes on easily. Like I love this stuff. But I looked at the ingredients and I'm like, I don't know what these are. And so I looked for studies and they don't exist. And so the EU has banned some of the chemicals that we allow. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to switch to mineral. But it's stuff like that where it's just like when I look for safety and regulations, I'm no longer looking to the FDA. I like know too much about how little they do. And I trust the EU more because they are kind of nanny state. But yeah, I do trust them.
Here's 2 policy recommendations that I've got that the government could do proactively in the United States to harken back to the casino thing. Something that I think would be a really good law that I would endorse would be for states to have licenses you can opt into, which preclude you from doing certain things. So for example, if you're an alcoholic and you go to oklahomadmv.com and go, I want a special license, please. And they go, yep, here's your blue license. You can no longer buy alcohol with it. You have to go through paperwork and wait a month before you can reverse this. That way, when you go into that gas station and they ask for your ID, you've opted out and you're not able to get it. I think that would provide a speed bump, and you could do the same thing with casinos. And casinos have, I think, to some extent, stuff like that in Nevada where you can be on the no list or whatever. I think those would be helpful. The other thing I would do is for country, this might be on the books, but I don't think it is. For countries that have trustworthy regulatory environments of medicine, just like green light them automatically for American consumption. That would make the goods cheaper and easier here. Like, I'm not entirely sure why we don't, like, I keep hearing about how cheap insulin is in Canada. And I'm like, well, then why don't we just buy it from Canada? What is the problem here? I'm not worried about Canadian insulin. The companies making Canadian insulin would make money from it. So like, good for them. So like for Canada, the European Union, that kind of thing, if they've got some medication and we're like, yep, their regulatory agencies are as good or better than us, then just, it's fine. Automatic green light to come in.
Yeah, but then the pharmaceutical companies can't charge us whatever the fuck they want and get outrageous profits. Because that's the point.
Yeah, I know. We're speaking the same language. I think we're overregulated in that regard, and that regulatory capture is rife, and would love to prune that back.
Yeah.
And anytime I can
is.
gut punch the regulatory capture, will.
Yeah. Yeah, the sunscreen thing, the first time I really looked into it was the CARES Act. Like the beginning of the CARES Act is all about sunscreen. What the fuck is this? Like, this isn't an emergency situation, but they just used it as an opportunity to dingleberry something in the law.
Jam a bunch of shit in there.
Yeah, it sped up a regulatory process that they were in the middle of. And I was just like, oh, well, there you go. There's an industry here. So when I look at these chemicals that are kind of like, we're not sure about their safety, and I see they're not doing studies and they're not banning it here, I'm just like, okay, I don't trust our government on this one. I've already seen favors in legislation.
All right, let's go eat.
All right.
Sweet.
Bye.